when we were praying at Masharia's home at Nanyuki, and I was telling the people, and I can even bet here correctly, that in the next 100 years, all of us here will be where Masharia is. Hapa hakuna mtu atakuwa akikula githeri, wewe usinidanganye bwana. The next 100 years, if you are hearing this voice, the next 100 years, we will be with you at the other side of the afterlife. What it tells us is that death is one of the realities of life that we must first learn to appreciate and embrace. Number two, when we are alive, we must ask ourselves, what preparation are we making for our souls, for our spirit, when we die? One thing that gives me assurance against atheists and opposers of the gospel who oppose in the name of science, and we have told the scientists that we also need them to show us a self-worth, because we know it affects people, but you cannot touch anything and say, this is self-worth. This is how you can't measure self-esteem. You know, and when you ask them about some of these things, they call them metaphysics. They say this is metaphysical. And then we tell them that it is not metaphysical, it is spiritual. And they do not want to say it is spiritual because they do not believe in religion. So St. Paul is addressing Greek scholars, people that are learned. He is telling them that when we plant maize, we plant a grain. But when the maize plant starts growing, it is not the grain that we dropped in the soil that grows. It's a different green plant that grows that actually has no resemblance with the grain, the white grain that we dropped into the soil. And then Paul is saying that that grain has to drop into the soil, decay, and then it has to come up again in a new body. And St. Paul says that this is what happens for Christians when they die in the Lord. They are not lost. They are dropped in the soil, and they are able to grow in different body, to manifest differently, to live differently, and eventually they are given a body of heavenly glory, a body that is imperishable. Now, you know, when death happens, death is very interesting. Because when Masharia was alive, you know, people would come around hugging and doing all the things that people do when they have a dear person to them. But now when he is here, if we leave him here, Mzee police inspector will run after mchungaji. He will run after Reverend John, telling him, mchungaji huwezi kuniachia na mnaita fadhali kuja. Kwa sababu hata yeye hataki kuacha na hiyo kitu. Anayongopa. So these are mysteries that we may not find words to properly express them, but we can tell you that death is somewhere waiting for us. We don't know how far. Let me say this almost in a whisper, but it will be true, that someone has attended this funeral and they may not have an opportunity to attend any other funeral. When that happens, if you are a Christian, you will be at home with the Lord. The Lord will take that body that is perishable, it will perish in the soil, and meanwhile, you will be given a new body. You will be clothed. Your spirit, which is imperishable and indestructible, will be clothed in a new body of heavenly glory. And the Bible in Revelation chapter 21 says that they are before the Lord day and night, and they are there singing time without end. And you are saying that Masharia was a good singer. I can be sure that he is singing in those heavenly choirs with the angels. I have about 2 of my minutes remaining. Now I want to ask you, how are you prepared about when your time comes? Clearly, there are those who have taken, the step of making a partnership with Christ, of saying, Jesus, I believe in your death and resurrection, that it was to save me from my sin. And out of that conversion, they are saved. There are those who have said, no, I don't believe it. It was the colonizers' way of softening the African Sir to take away his